unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you, Ian?
I'm doing good. Hurricane or not, I'm ready for this weekend for college football.
Yeah, so got to mention it first because it's going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours, this event. So, I'm wearing my St. Pete shirt to think about you guys in the Bay Area. So, it's, I lived through it for 34 years or 33 years, and it's not fun. It definitely isn't. My parents' place in Brooksville, when I lived with them before I moved out to LA, they lost 40, 50 trees that got down. So we had to take care of them. So it is a tough to recover from storms. And that wasn't even a direct hit necessarily. That was like a weaker hit in 2017. So, this one, there's a lot of storm surge allegedly, and there's it's pretty severe storms. So just be careful, everyone. If it seems like it's going to be worse, and if you're in the direct path of the storm, please get out of there. It's not worth it to stay there to potentially, I don't know what. If there's ever a chance to get out, you should get out. Okay, so let's move on to what we're here for, which is college football. This is the preview show. Every Wednesday is the preview show that we air at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. It is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So you can find it there on those four sources. For YouTube, it is at Hater Radio to find it there. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. For Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, it is at Hater_Radio. Ian, what are your socials before we begin?
Yeah, at Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, it's at G_Gator_G.
Nice. Okay, so let's begin with the show. So, not a crazy amount of big games, but there are a couple of heavy hitters. So we'll get into them first with this first game on Friday, Virginia Tech, Miami. Ian, I want to hear your thoughts on this matchup because I don't know too much about Vatek. I only know that they lost or beat Vanderbilt by the smallest of margins in overtime. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, so Vanny is defensively has been struggling a lot against the pass this year. We saw that when they lost to Vanderbilt, and even last week when they lost to Rutgers. Yeah. They have played Marshall and Old Dominion. Those are their two wins on the year so far. And they put up 30 points and all that. King Drones, the starting quarterback, he's very erratic when it comes to the passing game, but he's definitely the catalyst for the team offensively as well. So he very mobile, very good to make a play happen, but you've seen a lot of times he's trying to force too many plays in, especially when it gets down to the wire. He tries to, just make too much out of too little. And on the other side, you have, Miami, who, has been mowing through teams that they're supposed to. This is kind of another game that they should handle. They open ACC play. If we were talking 20 years ago, they would be open Big East play here. Shout out to people who remember that.
Me.
But yeah, me. Oh, barely. Miami and Vatek were in right when I was getting into college football, and then they jumped ship. Anyways, for Miami, this is where I always say conference play is where your real season begins. And sure enough, they play Vatek, and then they have, the outlook of the schedule, but it's a very favorable schedule, especially in conference play. And Vatek's another one. It's in Miami. It's Friday night. I feel like Miami's going to do the job well, get their business done. Cam Ward has shown has shown no signs of struggling against defenses like this. Passing, they've been very Vodtek's passing defense has been okay, but rushing they've struggled, and especially if you're playing a mobile quarterback like Cam Ward, it's going to be tough to stop. So I'm going to take the Hurricanes winning this one. I'll go with let's go 38-17 Canes.
Yeah, and I guess I'm mistaken that Vodtek had beaten Vanderbilt, but yeah, you said it. Vanderbilt won that game in overtime. No. So this Vodtek team, obviously, I'm looking at their schedule where they beat a Marshall team that seems better than their other victory because Old Dominion's kind of a nothing team, and then they lost to Rutgers. So it's like, what do you kind of make of this team? And lost to this like somewhat decent Vanderbilt team. I know what we have in Miami. Miami's very capable. More than likely, if they take care of business the rest of the year, they're a playoff team, which seems likely. They only have Louisville on their schedule. They don't have Clemson, but they do have an ACC championship game, which could keep them from getting one of the 4 byes, which honestly would be kind of a detriment because if they don't get a bye, then they have to host a home playoff game, which they don't have the best environment for the home experience. So like most of those teams would probably, treat it as a home game. So I don't know, just hypothetical in the future, but again, they don't have that tough of a schedule the rest of the year. This should be an easy one for them. But again, there's always those games like where you don't think a team is going to lose, and then somehow this team just miraculously loses to like a 17-point underdog. I don't think that's the case here, but you always have to worry about that as a team, like because you take some teams lightly. You're like, oh, we just played Florida in the beginning of the year, and then we played USF, and the USF game was at least competitive halfway through. Are they going to be competitive in this game? I think so. I think Miami's offense is really good. I think their offense is their strong suit. I think their defense is like good enough, and I think that'll be good enough to keep them winning all their games this year. But their offense is what makes this team go, and I think Cam Ward probably puts up another 300 yards and at least 3 TD game. So I'm going to say Miami wins probably like 38 to like 17. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's spot on.
I tried to like ignore what you said and just come up with a score on my own. I was like, and I just came to that, but it might have been like subconsciously hearing that, and I just put that in my head. But that's what I was going to go with anyways, because like that's what they have been typically scoring, and I don't think that Vodtek is going to score that much anyways. Okay, moving on. Kentucky Ole Miss. I put this game on here because it's Ole Miss's first SEC game, which they have such a cake schedule to begin their year, and but this Kentucky team did take Georgia to a 1-point game deep into the game. It ended that way. It was like for almost the whole game. They were leading for parts of this game against Georgia, and so this Kentucky defense is for real. Like it kept Georgia in check. Can it keep Ole Miss in check? I think they can, but I think Ole Miss is good enough on defense to prevent Kentucky from doing almost anything. So I'm going to say it's going to be like a 24-10 game, I'm thinking. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and I think defense is really what it's going to come down to, because as everybody marvels at Ole Miss's offense, and rightfully so, it's the number 1 offense, not only the SEC, but the country right now.
Yeah.
Their defense has been in the top 25 as well. It's one of the best ones in the SEC. Now, credit, I'm going to put an asterisk on that because they played
nobody.
Yeah, Furman, Georgia Southern was last week, and Middle
Wake
Tennessee
Forest.
and Wake. Yeah. So I'll give them that. But the one thing with Kentucky, and we saw this, is that their strength on offense has been the running game. They obviously rely on the run, and then they set up kind of like a poor man's Georgia offense. They set up, the run for the play action pass. But the thing is that Ole Miss has done very well this year to stuff the run up the middle, and that's particularly where Kentucky attacks. So with that, as good as Kentucky's defense is, and I think this is actually going to give Ole Miss a scare, I think there's too much firepower from Jackson Dart and the Rebels that I just don't think Kentucky can keep up late into the game. So I'm going to go Rebels winning this one. I'm going to go, let's go 35-19.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Ole Miss is, I don't know, they just had the schedule that's really soft. So it's like, it's hard to truly tell how good they are. But we know from the last 3 years that they are good offensively and that they're going to be able to move the ball against 90 to 95% of the teams in the country. It's just really when it comes to games like Alabama and Georgia, do they struggle? And honestly, their schedule is so easy this year that they should cakewalk to at least 10 wins. And, I think it's possible because, it's just their toughest game is LSU and Georgia. And, if they lose the Georgia game and beat LSU, then they more than likely are going to get into the SEC championship game because they would have one SEC loss. And, I know that this Texas, Alabama, Georgia, bit of a round robin, except for Texas and Alabama playing each other. It's going to really show those 3 teams. There's going to be at least one loss between the 3 of them, at least. So it's like, it's going to be at least 2 of them having at least one loss. And so it's like, there's a chance that, Ole Miss could get into this thing. And it's interesting. I mean, I think right now, as far as playoff teams for the SEC, I think you can you could look at 5 teams. You can look at Texas, 100% is getting in. There'd have to be an extreme meltdown for them to not get in the playoff. And the same thing with Georgia for the most part. They still look like the best team in the country from the last 3-4 years. Alabama looks really good. I mean, I saw them up close and personal. I know it was USF and it was a close game, but they still have the firepower. Ryan Williams is probably one of the best players in the country, and the kid is 17 and should be in high school. And then you have Tennessee, who we haven't even talked about, who's beaten Oklahoma and NC State, and they've obliterated NC State. And so you have them and Ole Miss, and that's 5 really good teams that go in the playoff. I mean, there could be potentially SEC matchups in the first round in the playoff, which would be interesting. But I think the playoff committee might avoid those if they can, just because we've already seen those for the most part. But it is interesting. 5 SEC teams more than likely will get in because I even envision most of them, even if 2 or 3 of them have 2 losses, still getting in. Okay, which is going to be inevitable. Just the numbers game. Next game, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Now, these 2 teams coming off of losses, Kansas State to BYU and Oklahoma State to Utah. So, I'm not the biggest fan of this Oklahoma State. I favor more Kansas State in this matchup because I like their offense. Their ability to be balanced. And, Avery Johnson is capable. He's a solid runner. He can put up, pretty good yardage when needed. I'm not the biggest fan of Bowman. I've kind of been underwhelmed by him all year. They got lucky in that Arkansas game and, that Utah game. Utah was in control the whole time. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like Kansas State is the better team here. I feel like it's in Manhattan, so Kansas State should get the win. I'm thinking Kansas State probably wins I don't know, maybe 28 to 24. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and I think again, the difference will be here is that I think offensively both teams are actually pretty even. And honestly,
Yeah.
this might be a coin flip of a game.
Yeah.
But defensively, Kansas State has been vastly superior to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, when I did the homework, has, I think, if not the worst one, they're in the like 120 range of total defense.
Yeah.
They have been very, very bad. And they're going to, most games, when they're going to try to win, are going to be based on shootouts. But Kansas State, again, back to the days of Bill Snyder, have always been preaching about, strong defense and scoring off turnovers. So with that, I think K-State is better equipped to handle an Oklahoma State attack like this. I think Oklahoma State keeps it close based on Bowman and Ollie Gordon's, superstar power. But I think K-State just has the better overall team, and they'll find a way to win. I'm going to go Wildcats winning. Let's do 31-24 K-State.
Okay. Next game, it is one of the teams we cover, which we cover USF, USC, UCLA, and Florida. Florida's on a bye week, but USF is playing Tulane at 11 a.m. Central and 12 p.m. Eastern. So it's an early game. There are some worries about getting the team ready for an early game because especially 11 a.m. Central, they have to be up at like basically 6 a.m. to like get from the hotel, get like suited up, get ready to get on the field, get breakfast, all that stuff. So it takes a long time for the team to be ready. And then that early of a game, it kind of is worrisome in some ways. But I'm not as worried because of a coach like Alex Golish, who has this team prepared for the most part. Alex was really pissed after that Miami game, and it was a real shame, because, USF was in there at halftime. If they had scored that field goal or a touchdown before half, maybe it's a little different. Maybe if they scored right after halftime as well, even if it was just a field goal, I don't know. That game could have been completely different, but it is what it is. It's in the past now. They have a chance now to start their conference slate against Tulane with a win, and it's going to be tough. I want to hear your thoughts before we go. But Ian, let me tell me more about your thoughts on the Miami game because I didn't include them in the recap the other day. I want to hear your thoughts on the USF Miami game.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. But when I was watching the game, it was eerily similar to the Bama game where they were hanging with them, but it was at like some point the switch was flipped and it just went all Miami's way.
Yeah.
And I think the point they brought out was when that field goal was missed. And this is one thing that is on Golish. You have to be starting Dramatica now for the rest of the year. You cannot you cannot be doing this whole, under 30-yard specialist in front. You need to have a kicker that can just hit it wherever because they get, cold and they get, it just isn't good for a team to have something like that. And after that, Miami showed how good they were. And honestly, it came down to it where, yes, they lost and they lost bad, but Miami's just the better team. And there's nothing they can do about that right now.
Yeah, no.
So with that, I will say second half play calling, they try to hit way too many home run plays. And when you're in that situation, you need to tell Byram to just be like, look, we're going to give Atkins on slant routes, curls, something to give you guys space to breathe, to get open, instead of throwing it in a triple coverage like 50 yards down the field. You're not going to win a game like that. So second half wasn't as encouraging because they literally were just throwing anything at the wall to see what would stick instead of what seemed like having a game plan to attack. And it's against Miami. I get you kind of have to do that when you're just outmatched like that. Yeah. But it was something I was hoping to see better of was the play calling. But I'm more of that game. I knew Miami's just the better team right now. And again, there's nothing to be ashamed of that. It's just the facts. But how you respond to this is going to be very important. I said it before in the show. Your season starts in conference play. USF has everything to play for still this week, and it does not. It's not a cakewalk welcome in. You got to play one of the toughest teams in your conference, and a team you're going to have to beat to win it, regardless. So I believe Golish will, be like, look, we're factory resetting the first 4 games. Bethune-Cookman, Bama, Southern Miss, and Miami. Those games didn't happen. This is the season now, because what you were playing for is that conference championship, and you're only going to win that with conference wins. So at least with the Miami game, it sucked, but it wasn't, they still have everything in front of them.
Yeah, and honestly, outside of the Tulane and Memphis game, it's a really soft schedule. Like UAB, FAU is struggling mightily. Navy, Charlotte, Tulsa, Rice. Like the back half of the schedule is really soft. And so they have to buck up here, and they've got to win these 2 games, at least split. Like minimum, they have to split with Tulane and Memphis, because they cannot lose both of those games. Losing both of those games pretty much denies them the chance of getting to the AAC championship game. So they have to win these 2, or at least one of them. And I feel like they can at least win one of them. This Tulane team, with Mensa, I've watched them play a couple of games, and Mensa is very capable, and their offense is not terrible for sure. It's, in the games I've seen, they were going up against way more high-powered teams than they were in Kansas State and Oklahoma, who have way more talent than they do. But Tulane stayed with them, and Tulane almost beat Kansas State. They probably should have beaten Kansas State, except for a few plays here or there. It went to overtime, and the Oklahoma game was close at the end. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team. It's in New Orleans. It's going to be tough. I feel like if Byram can be Byram, they should win. He went out of the game against Miami in the 4th quarter. I don't know. Give me your prediction, and I'll give mine after you go.
So I think it is gonna come down to the passing game for USF, which has been good but not great, not what we're expecting. And I think, again, it's just you're gonna have to make more high percentage plays happen to win a game like this. Tulane is, I think, up there in defenses in the AAC. I know they have one of the best passing defenses in the AAC. So you're going to have to find a way to just get more high percentage plays. Not every play has to be a home run. Like I said, I want to see more of, running play, like using, Kelly Joyner, Naquan Wright, using them on read option plays, get them off balance defensively, and make it like, if USF can make plays where it's like 3rd and manageable, they'll be in good shape. But that's going to come down to play calling. You can't just call 4 verticals every time and expect somebody to be open. So I think that's what oh man, it's tough.
It is tough. This is a very close game. And like you said, Tulane's defense is not a joke. They're definitely a solid defense, played 2 really good opponents and held them in check for the most part. They've only allowed 341 yards of offense average a game. So I don't know. What are you thinking?
I think I'm gonna, based on Tulane's, they've been in, those games, even though they lost to Oklahoma and K-State, those teams, they put up a better fight. So I'm going to take Tulane winning in a close one. Yeah. I just think with, especially defensively, if USF can limit penalties, they'll be okay. But they're going to have to find a way to get off the field, and Tulane will take advantage every time they can. And that's the thing. Tulane is very opportunistic, and they will take advantage of any mistake USF has. And I think USF, not that they'll make a bunch, but there'll just be too much for them to overcome. So I'm going to take Green Wave winning. I'll go with let's go 31-27.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like it's setting up for Tulane to win this game, and it sucks because this is an important game. Next week is very important, and it's like because like what we've tried to do with this show is try to be as objective as possible with our analysis and not be but also acknowledging the fact that we are fans of these teams, because both me and you're current student of USF and I'm an alumni, and so like we both have our hearts with USF, but we also realize that it's possible that they could lose this game. And I think you're right. I think they do. And I hate even saying it because I want this team to win, but I'm just being realistic. Like it's in New Orleans. It's an early game. They've had 2 matchups against really big teams and they've kind of faltered. And I would hope they could overcome all that and get into this game and forget and just go into AAC play and dominate. But it's going to be hard, especially against one of the. I wish they were playing Charlotte this week or Tulsa or Rice. Like that would be so much better than playing the best opponent they're going to play all year in the AAC. But this is the reality. The last thing I did want to say was Schuler, the linebacker for USF, looks like as of today is being projected as going to be able to play this weekend, which is a huge boost for the defense because he's definitely one of their best linebackers. And I just still feel like it probably won't make a huge difference because he's not going to play the whole game. But so I'm going to say Tulane wins probably like, I don't know, probably 30 to like 25. Okay, let's move on. We got Wisconsin and USC. Good old Wisconsin. My buddy Matt is a huge Wisconsin fan because his family lives in, I think, outside of Milwaukee. I can't remember. I know he's in the Midwest a lot because he grew up in Chicago, but then they moved to Wisconsin and in a more rural area. And then he lived in Minnesota at a time. And I think he even lived in Madison for a period. But their family is obviously big Wisconsin fans, but his wife, our friend Jessica, is a huge USC fan. So Matt's family is all coming in and they're all going to the game on Saturday. So should be a lot of fun. I have to work, so I'm not going to be able to go. If I didn't have to work, I would have gone. But no, should be an exciting game. I feel like USC is going to get on the right track here. I know in the game against Michigan, they struggled to put up a ton of points. Michigan's defense really, I don't know, it did some things to disrupt Miller Moss, and so he wasn't as effective as he could be. He still had a really good game regardless, and they were leading into the fourth quarter, and they had a chance of winning it. They just couldn't make the stops on defense, primarily huge runs where I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff on Twitter, but there was a lot of screen grabs from USC fans showing the holds and a lot of the penalties that happened. But you can't blame that because Michigan won. It was a road game. So whatever, this is a home game for USC. They got a chance to get over that, which I think they will. I don't really like this Wisconsin team. They got smoked by Alabama 2 weeks ago. And I feel like USC is going to do the same. I think it's going to be a similar score, like a 35 to 17 game. And I think USC defensively is going to be able to hold their own, which I think that's what, Wisconsin is probably going to have to worry the most about, is because they probably feel like, oh, we could, move the ball on them. But really, Michigan barely did outside of 3 or 4 run plays. And I think if they can eliminate the explosive play, I think USC can get back to the form they had the first couple of weeks, which I think they will. And I think, like I said, 35-17. So Ian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and doing some homework, and now this isn't totally like verified, but I did do some homework on Wisconsin,
Yeah.
especially going on the road into the West Coast. And what I found out was that through their history, they have not won a road game against any team west of Texas since 2009, and that was against Hawaii.
Wow.
So now they have to go all the way to LA, shorter travel than Hawaii, but historically they have not done well going west or east of, the Big Ten. So I think USC keeps it up. I think they, learn from the Michigan game. I know they should have a better attack against the Wisconsin defense than the Michigan defense. So I think Wisconsin or USC will win. And I just don't see enough from Wisconsin, especially offensively, to keep up. So I'm going to go Trojans winning. I'll go with a 35-14 win for SC.
Okay, hold on a second, Ian. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, and like you said, it's one of those teams where it's like Wisconsin is such a like prototypical Big Ten team. So, if they come up against an offense that can put up a lot of points, it's they have a good defense usually the last several years, but it's like if they go up against a team that can put up a lot of points, they struggle. And so that's what I like I said, I think that's going to be the case here. So let's move on to Louisville, Notre Dame. Interesting game because Louisville's undefeated. Notre Dame has that loss against Northern Illinois. Louisville, pretty decent on defense, only allowing 268 average so far this year. But on offense, they're around 502 a game with Sluck or God, I just found out how to say it and I forgot. I think it is Sluck. I can't, dude. I literally found out the other day how to say it because I heard someone say it and I had it saved. Let me see if I have it saved on here.
Tyler Show, the quarterback for Louisville.
Shuck. Sorry, not Sluck. Oh. Shuck. That's how you say it. I know that it looks weird, but it really is.
From, when he was like the backup at Tennessee.
No, he's the guy that was at Oregon and Texas Tech.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Dude, that's how long ago this guy's been playing.
Jeez.
I'm not joking. Like, where did I thought I had it in here, but I guess I don't. No, but he is he's definitely been around forever. And I was surprised too because he what is it? One of the games that he had, I can't remember which game it was. He had like a deep pass that I was like, whoa, I didn't even know he could throw it deep. Because like, in years past, he's been like limited. Like his arm strength has been like at most 20 yards at all. And like I saw him throw like a 40, 45-yard pass. And I'm like, this is this kid. This is the same guy that we've seen for 7-8 years now.
Yeah.
But no, so this Louisville team coached very well by Jeff Brom. Like they've done quite well. Last year they were in the ACC championship game, which I feel like they're on the trajectory to get there again. They play both Clemson and Miami, so they're going to have to go through both. at least beating one of them to try to get to the ACC championship, because both of them only play one of the other teams. So Clemson only plays Louisville and Miami only plays Louisville. So they don't play each other. So Louisville has the harder path of the two, or the three. And I feel like Louisville beat the pants off Notre Dame last year.
Mhm.
And I think they have that same mentality that they can do the same thing that they did last year. That was a home game last year for Louisville. So this year it's in South Bend. Does Marcus Freeman get revenge? I don't know. I mean, Riley Leonard looked really good against Purdue and they smoked Purdue. Does this Notre Dame team take the next step after that loss to Northern Illinois, who ended up losing the other day? So it's like that loss looks even worse. I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame has such an easy schedule after this, like outside of USC. And so, like, they easily could get to the playoff, which I think is definitely possible. I mean, because they play Florida State, Navy, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Virginia, Army. Like, the only game that they should lose out of the remaining games is potentially this Louisville game and the USC game. And I think this is their game right here. If they beat this Louisville team, then they get in the playoff, regardless of what happens to the USC game. So, I think they're going to play this like their Super Bowl. And I think that's going to be why I think they win this one. And that's the only reason I'm leaning more towards them, is because I feel like there's so much importance on winning this game for the rest of their season. So I'm going to say Notre Dame wins barely, but I'm going to say like a 28-27 game. What do you got, Ian?
So Louisville has really been under the radar. They're undefeated, and they got noticed because they beat Georgia Tech last week 31-19. But actually, they are top 25 in the country in both offense and defense. In offense, they're 14th, and I think defense they're in the 20s. But still, very impressive. And with Notre Dame, offensively, they're fine, but man, now you got to play. They struggled obviously against Northern Illinois. Then they looked great against Purdue, and then Miami of Ohio. I mean, they won 28-3. I don't know. I'm just feeling like with Louisville, they were worse last year, and they still beat Notre Dame. And I get they got to go to South Bend and now beat and now play Notre Dame on the road. But I feel like I'm going to go Cardinals in this one, because I just feel like they can find a way to prevent Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been very predictable on offense, and I think they'll exploit that. So I'm going to go Cardinals winning. I'll go with let's go 24-20 Louisville win.
Okay, we're split on that one, but it's going to be a close game. And like I said, the only reason I'm really going towards Notre Dame is because of the fact that I feel like they have more to lose in this game. I think Louisville, even if they lose this game because it's a non-conference game, it's not the end of the world for them, because they just have to really contend with Clemson and Miami to get in the playoff. Notre Dame is kind of like secondary, but Notre Dame already has a loss, so they have a lot of importance to this game. God dang it. Sorry about that. Okay. Next game, Arkansas, Texas A&M. I just put this on here because I feel like Arkansas is being undervalued right now. And, they smoked Auburn. I feel like they could beat this Texas A&M team, because I'm not the biggest fan of them. I know they beat Florida, but that's looking less and less impressive as we go on. So I'm going to say Arkansas wins this one. I like their quarterback. I'm going to say Arkansas wins like 31 to like 20. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I agree. I think Arkansas, because A&M hasn't been overly impressive. Yes, they beat McNeese State. They had a tough loss against Notre Dame. They obviously beat Florida, but then they struggled really bad against Bowling Green. Like, it was not a pretty win at all. But Arkansas, they've looked much better this season compared to last. They had a tough loss against OK State, even though they really outplayed them.
Yeah.
It got close with UAB, but then they, jump on a really struggling Auburn team. And this is the thing: A&M and Auburn offensively are still figuring things out, and I think Arkansas will take advantage of that again. So I'm going to go Razorbacks winning. I'm going to go Arkansas beating A&M. Let's see. What's in Jerry rolled? So let's go 29-23 A&M. Or Arkansas, sorry.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. The NCAA website has it as at Texas A&M, but it's I thought it was at Jerry's World, but they didn't denote that it was at the.
I mean, it is in Texas, so they're not totally wrong.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, moving on. Colorado, UCF. What are your thoughts? And then we'll move on this one quick.
Yeah, first of all, Colorado, holy cow, that was insane. That was seriously like miracle at Michigan level of a victory last week. I find it also hilarious that Baylor's, prevent was called victory cigar, and the guy falls and gives up the Hail Mary. But both of these teams, so man, with UCF and Colorado, they're actually more similar than I think a lot of people realize. But UCF's offense is top 10 in the country, and I think they're number 1 in the Big 12 right now. And that goes to KJ Jefferson. We know how good he is and how much of a monster he is. And with Colorado, they have struggled mightily on defense. I still think they're on the low end of the Big 12 ranking in defense. And on offensively speaking, without Hunter and Sanders, again, it's been very So I'm going to take UCF winning this one. I just think UCF is better equipped in this game, especially Colorado. I don't know. That was one I should have looked up, but I know they don't have the greatest record going into Southern environment, like anything south of the Mason-Dixon. It's not the best record, not including bowl games. But I think UCF wins out in this one, mostly by KJ Jefferson. I'm going to go 35-25 Knights.
Yeah, and I'm obviously not a fan of either of these teams that much. I do recognize talent, though. Shedeur Sanders is very talented. Travis Hunter, obviously very talented. The rest of Colorado's team is kind of whatever. Their defense is better than last year, but still like in the 70s or 80s ranking-wise. So they're still giving up a ton of yards. And that Baylor team wasn't even that good. They were 3-9 last year, so they kind of just, lucked into a victory against a 3-9 team. I don't really like this UCF team. They've played a lot of nobodies so far. They got lucky against TCU. They had to have a massive comeback. I think it's the biggest comeback they've ever had. And so, and I think TCU is probably better than Baylor. But as far as both of these teams, I think they're about where they should be. I want UCF to lose this one so that they at least have one loss going into the Florida game. Not that it'll matter, because I'm more than likely thinking that Florida is going to lose that game just because Billy Napier is on the verge of being fired. But I don't know. For this one, I think Colorado probably wins this game just because I don't think UCF can stop their offense. and I think Colorado is probably going to put up like at least 31, 34 points. And I think UCF only puts up like 28. It'll be closer, but I think maybe at the end UCF scores one late to make it closer than it actually is. So I'm going to say 34 to 28. Okay, moving on. Quick one. We'll go through this one. Mississippi, Texas State. The only reason I put it on there because it's Texas's first SEC game. I think Texas wins this pretty handedly. Mississippi State is a bad team. They looked really terrible against Florida, which says a lot considering Florida's about to fire their coach. But they are a first-year head coach there, so they did lose Shapen to injury for the rest of the year. So they're going to their backup quarterback. I still feel like Texas wins this big. I'm going to say like Texas wins like 45 to like 17. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, for this one, I'm pray for Mississippi State because Texas is just a machine right now. They looked, Mississippi State looked really bad against Florida. They got blown out by Toledo, and then they lose by a touchdown to Arizona State. And then, Texas has only allowed more than 10 points to one team, and that was Michigan all year. So I think they're going to keep it rolling. I'm going to go Longhorns winning. I'll go 42 to 14, Texas.
Okay. Here comes the big one. Georgia, Alabama in Tuscaloosa. There's a lot riding on this game for both teams. Shot at getting the first round bye. This is pretty much, now that it's no divisions, these two teams will play each other a home and away each 2 years out of a 4-year cycle. So we'll see these teams play each other more often. So now we don't have to wait until the SEC championship game. We will see this matchup more often than not, because not only will they play in the regular season, but there's a chance that they play in the SEC championship game. And then now there's a chance that they may even play in the playoffs against each other. So we will get this matchup more often than not now. And that's a good thing because these are two good football teams. You want to see the best two teams go up against each other. DeBoer in his first real big-time matchup. Wisconsin wasn't really that big of a matchup. We knew that they were going to blow them out. This is Georgia. This is a team that has one of the best defenses the last 5 years, and it's not even close. I think, maybe Michigan and like Penn State, and that's about it. But Georgia has been the best defense, and their offense has been up there as well. Right now, Georgia is only allowing 202 yards per game, and Georgia hasn't given up a TD as well so far this season. Offensively, Georgia is around 402 yards per game, but defensively, Alabama's been able to hold people to 248. It's in Tuscaloosa. These teams are not exactly even because they're like different makeups, because Jalen Milroe is quite different than Carson Beck, but they're still both very talented and do different things and get very good results. Like I said, I talked about Ryan Williams earlier. I really like him here to probably have a huge game. I don't think Georgia's even had anyone remotely close to that they've played against, except for maybe Jamison Williams the last 2 or 3 years. So, and maybe LSU, but that's about it. So I really expect Alabama to have a really good game, but it's still going to be close because Georgia's offense is still going to be able to score points. I'm going to say like a 28-24 game, and I'm going to go Alabama here. What do you got, Ian?
So Georgia has not beaten. Now, they've played each other a lot in the recent years, especially since Kirby Smart took over at Georgia, but they haven't played each other at like one of each other's home stadiums since 2020.
Yeah.
And that was in Tuscaloosa. Since then, it's been either Atlanta or the national championship. The last time Georgia went and won in Tuscaloosa was in 2007, Nick Saban's first year.
I was with Stafford.
Yeah, Stafford, yeah. And it was I remember that game. Yeah. But So now Georgia has to go on the road to Alabama, tough environment. It's tough to call because both the teams are very good. You have Georgia, who's kind of now the established power, in Alabama, who's still very good, but with a new head coach and all that, there's a lot to be, seen still. Although they did, great beating Wisconsin, running away against USF at the end. I don't know. Man, I feel like Alabama hasn't played a defense like this, and we saw when Milroe played a defense like Michigan last year, that if he is cornered, the offense just sputters. So I think with that, Georgia's going to get in his face and force a mistake. And I think Georgia, based on defense, will win this one. And the offense does just enough from a limited Milroe to win the game. So I'm going to go Bulldogs in a big win. Not that they'll score a lot. It's just I think this is going to be a huge win for Georgia. I'm going to go Dogs winning 24 to 20.
Nice. Okay, moving on. Illinois, Penn State. Illinois' defense is the ninth, or no, not Illinois. Penn State's defense is the ninth best in the country at 229 a game that they give up. Illinois is not that far off at 292, the 32nd best. They also played really tough teams in Kansas and Nebraska so far. Penn State barely beat Bowling Green, but looked good against a good West Virginia team. Also beat Kent State pretty handedly, only allowing 67 yards. Yes, 67. And they put up 718 in that game. On offense, it's skewed for Penn State because of that big output. They have 537 per game, but Illinois is at 379, which is that's pretty baseline for Illinois because they're pretty split down the middle and balance between the run and the pass. So I feel like Illinois can move the ball here. Altmaier is a decent quarterback. I've never been sold on Alar. I mean, we've been talking about this kid for 3-4 years, and I've just never seen it in big games. This is a big game, so maybe he will produce here. I doubt it. I think Illinois gets the win. It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be like a 24-21 game. Ian, what do you got?
Yeah, this was my upset pick because I know there's a lot of picks for Illinois, at least when I saw percentage. It was in the 80s predicting Penn State would win. But here's the difference. Illinois just came off a huge road win against Nebraska. And you can't tell me that wasn't a tough environment because it was the 400th straight sellout in Lincoln. And they went in there and they won it in overtime. It was a really gutsy win. Then they pulled one out against Kansas at home. And they've looked great so far, both especially defensively, but especially on offense too, getting the big play when it counts. And Penn State, they struggled against Bowling Green. They looked good against West Virginia and Kent State. But I feel like Illinois has literally just came off a game like this. They were on the road, not expected to win, and a tough crowd, and they silenced them, and they won an OT. And I think the Illini will do it again. I'm going to go Illinois winning. I'll go with a 28-21 Illinois.
Yeah, staying undefeated. We both feel that way. That's crazy. Illinois, probably the surprise team of the Big Ten right now. Moving on.
Coach, last time they were, I think, in the top 20, or at least top 20.
You talking about Zook?
Yeah, I think he was the last one, and at least in the upper half of the Big Ten. I saw something like that, and it was 2006. And I was like, oh, geez, that would have been Zook as coach.
Yeah, it was. Okay, moving on. Last two, Arizona, Utah. I feel like Utah should get this win, but Fafita is a very strong quarterback that we've kind of lost track of because they had a great year last year, but this year they've kind of got off to a rough start. They got smoked by Kansas State. Can they get a better result here? I think they can. Utah has not played as good of an offense as Arizona so far this year. I feel like Utah will probably get the win though, because Utah, it's in Salt Lake City, and I know Ian, you always talk about their win streak they've had going back. They win at home. That's just what they do. They have a really good crowd. It's a very good stadium. I'm going to say Utah wins close, like 2017, and like maybe a field goal at the end wins it. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and I think I'm right there with you. With Arizona State, I do think they're still very good. It's just I don't know if they can keep up with Utah. Just offensively, it's been, they haven't looked great. They, barely beat NAU, Northern Arizona. Well, I shouldn't say barely beat, but they won 22-10. They get blown out by Kansas State, and then they were in a shootout with New Mexico. And Utah is just taking care of business. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. So I'm going to go Utes winning this one. It's in, it's in Rice-Louis Stadium. It's at night. I think that's Utah's, it's Utah's to lose. So I'm going to go Utes winning 31-19.
All right, last one, and we'll call it a day. UCLA and Oregon in LA at the Rose Bowl. Coming off that loss to LSU, coming off that loss to Indiana, it's been brutal. Like, that's a real tough stretch, and I think people are really starting to realize how good this Indiana team, because they have like the second best defense and like a top 5 offense as well. So this Indiana team is going to be really scary the rest of the year. I don't think people realize how good they are, and they'll start playing really good teams, and they're going to put a little a scare into all those big teams. So, but UCLA 1-2 right now, going up against a good Oregon team, and Dylan Gabriels has looked good. They've had some tough matchups against Boise State, and then I'm trying to think who else they beat the other day.
Oregon State.
Who?
They won the Civil War. Oregon
State. So they've had some decent matchups. I like Oregon in this, and it pains me to say it, but UCLA is just struggling right now, and I think Oregon's going to take advantage of it. I'm going to say Oregon wins like 34-17, and 17 seems like the baseline right now that what UCLA scores. So it seems likely that that's their output again. I do like Garbers. I think he gives them the best chance to win, but this is just who they are. They're just not good enough right now, and hopefully they can steal 2 or 3 games here in the next couple of weeks. We'll see, though. It's going to be tough. Their schedule gets even tougher after this. What do you got, Ian?
I do want to say with this one, I don't think this should count as Oregon's Big Ten first inaugural Big Ten game. I saw a thing with that. It's like, Oregon, or it was some advertisement that said Oregon's inaugural Big Ten game. And I'm like, no, it's not. This doesn't count. I get it. They're both in the Big Ten, but let Oregon play like Michigan State, then I'll count it as a Big Ten game.
Right.
Anyways, besides that, and that's me very, very going old man yelling at clouds now. This Oregon team, that, like I said, when they beat Oregon State, that was the Oregon team we were expecting to see, and we need to see more of. And I think they know now that they should be playing at this level. And I think UCLA is just outmatched right now. And I just think UCLA just doesn't have enough on offense. They've only scored more than 20 points once, and that was the opening game against Boise State. So I think Oregon just runs wild on them. I'm going to go Ducks winning. I'll go 38-17. They'll hit their quota.
Nice. Okay, that is it. Reach us at haterradio.com. All the socials, basically type in Hater Radio and all of it, and it'll come right up. And then, Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yes, at YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, it's at G_Gator_G.
Okay, enjoy these games. Saturday is going to be a lot of fun. And then Sunday we'll be back, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. See you then.